I gave people all the stuff they really needed. Social Security checks, utility bills, TV guide.
I want a TV guidance counselor. TV guidance counselor. Staying up to watch all night, and everything's gonna be alright with my TV guidance counselor.
Hey everybody, welcome to TV Guidance Counselor. I am Ken Reed, as always, your TV Guidance Counselor, and this is the show where each and every week since February 14, 2014, I welcome an interesting person to the show. We usually discuss classic issues of TV Guide magazine from my personal collection. That is the inspiration for our conversation, and this week is no different. We talk 90s, Oscars, and Dave Letterman with one of my favorite people in the entire world, Rob Turbovsky, old friend. He started here in Boston doing stand-up and then was a writer for the Boston Phoenix, moved out to Los Angeles and has done quite well for himself. Started writing on Silicon Valley and has been writing on Only Murders in the Building for a bit. Just an awesome dude. I miss him. I haven't been out to LA in 5 years since the pandemic started, and he's one of the guys that every time I'd go out there, we would always make it a point to go get Thai food. So it was nice to sit down and chat with him, and that is a great thing about the show. I can catch up with old friends, even 3,000 miles away. But Rob's the best, and I think you will enjoy this conversation. So please sit back, relax, and enjoy this brand new episode of TV Guidance Counselor with my guest, Rob Turbovsky.
TV is my friend, and it has been always there for me in time of need.
Live via satellite from sunny Los Angeles, old friend, Rob Turbovsky. How are you, sir?
I'm so delighted to be here, Ken. I'm doing great.
If I had to make a list of like the 5 people on Earth I like, you're on that list, and it's nice
Oh my God. Does that mean you've interviewed like 1,400 people you despise?
That's all. They're all neutral. Neutral. It's just
neutral.
neutral.
Neutral's
Yeah.
okay. That's
Yeah.
good. That's
Yeah.
good.
You know, I'm not insane.
I'm going to descend to neutral by the end of this.
Well, you never
it's
know.
It's nice to have started in your good graces.
It's happened before. Some people have tuned in and heard fall from grace, but you know, that's the excitement. It's like watching NASCAR. That's like when someone has a wipeout.
Yeah.
You might be the Dale Earnhardt Jr. of this podcast.
I'm very excited. Very excited.
That's not how I pitch it to guests. I would have difficulty booking the show.
Not in the email.
But so we go way back when you were doing stand up here in Boston. You grew up in the Philadelphia area, if I'm remembering correctly. Mm-hmm. But you've been out in LA for, Jesus, like 15 years now?
Somehow. Yeah, I was under the impression that, I thought like, okay, because I wanted to, try to be a writer, I think was what I thought then. And I was like, I'll come out and it will take me, I should do it early because it'll take me like 5 years to fail, and then I can finish that and move somewhere else. And what I've since realized is like that takes your whole life. Like only at the very end are you like, it didn't work out, and then death. So I'm in the midst. You're catching me 15 years into that journey.
You're failing into retirement. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah. Failing into death.
That's not true. You're doing very well, Rob. For people that don't know, I think the last thing you worked on was Only Murders in the Building, right?
Mm-hmm. That's right.
But I think the first big gig that I remember you getting was probably Silicon Valley. I think, right?
Yes, my writing partner, Mateo, and I worked on the first season of Silicon Valley. That was, in 2013, unbelievably. And then we were just on the first 4 seasons of Only Murders in the Building.
Which is pretty amazing. Like just, as I know you are a fellow, I hate to use the word nerd, but a lover of classic comedy people, to be able to write for the people in that show must have been a pretty big kick.
There's nothing quite like seeing Martin Short do a Clifford impression just for you. That's a whole other level.
You ask him to look at you like a human boy.
I think one time he said, like, I just had the bestest time in the whole wide world.
It's a strange life in which we lead.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Because the issue you picked here is you picked one with, so we got Letterman on the cover. This was, I don't, someone will tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like this was the only year Letterman hosted the Oscars.
I think that's true. I feel like the reputation of it was that it was a kind of failure or didn't go great, or he flopped or something like that. And then they went back to the kind of Billy Crystal rotation, I think, after this.
Because Letterman is like way not enough of a company man, like not enough of although weirdly, more akin to like the Ricky Gervais stuff later for hosting stuff where they have someone who's like kind of acerbic and has a point of view and isn't 100% psyched to be there. Sometimes.
Yeah, it was like, I think it was an attempt at an interesting choice, but it was also where Letterman was in like 95 was he'd already gotten the Late Show, so he's already on at 11:30. So he's already a little bit softer. That thing is happening where he's not late night Dave, where he's really adventurous, but he's not a comfortable fit for what we now think of as 11:30 for sure. So him on the Oscars, it was probably always going to be kind of weird.
And this is like classic Letterman where, to your point, even though he was softer, I guess, technically, because he was older, he seemed way more curmudgeonly and like kind of like the same kind of attitude and bits he would do as a younger man. Doing them now at like an advanced age just made him seem like kind of a just a miserable prick sometimes, in a good way. So it's sort of a perfect mixture. And, I would imagine the Oscars is like our perfect host would be like Jay Leno.
It is weird that he never did it, No.
I bet you that he was like, had some weird demand or something. They were like, no.
Probably that. And also, it also is just like famously, I think, like an impossible crowd, and like, how do you do well? I do think Steve Martin did it about as well as anybody has, because he has this kind of light touch that you need, I guess. But I don't know. I mean, now it doesn't matter at all anyway. But
no.
Yeah,
I couldn't even tell you who hosted it the last 10 years, but
or who's hosting it this year.
No,
Conan is hosting it.
Even what movies?
Yeah.
Because like also 95 was sort of a weird movie year. So we had kind of like had this weird peak of movies like late 90s, and then you had like Jurassic Park sort of the previous year, but like nothing had sort of really jumped out. It was like a very weird transitional year too.
Right. Yeah. I'm trying to look. Oh, I see. Yeah, this was like the Forrest Gump year.
Yeah.
And right. Yeah, this was a huge year for movies.
So I'm totally wrong.
No, I think it was 95. Are you looking at 96 maybe? I think it was like the Forrest Gump, Pulp Fiction.
Oh, you're right.
The big ones.
Yeah, because it would be movies from 94, basically.
Yes. Yeah, right. But, it's interesting to think of those two movies as existing in the same, and both being huge hits, like what a world.
Yeah, family hits, the 4-quadrant movies.
Yes.
So before we get into the listings and stuff here, I was just kind of flipping through. And first of all, I always like to point out the 90s shift from cigarette ads to prescription drug ads. So we got like a 2-page Claritin D ad here. And then they have this thing called Ask TV Guide, because even though the internet was around in 95, in the pre-internet age, if you had a question about television, you had to write it down, mail it to TV Guide, and hope they picked it.
I was blown away by these. Just imagine the way you put it, like how much it had to be bothering you or eating, you're laying awake at night, you can't sleep. You're falling down on the job as like a husband and parent, because you want to know, Does Geraldo have a legal background?
I gotta find out. Who would be able to tell me?
I like to think that this is not even the first publication that they sent a letter to. Like
No.
this was you've tried National Geographic, no word from them. The Paris Review.
Yep.
Let's see what TV Guide has to say.
The most shocking thing was he does.
Yeah,
I was surprised.
My God, yes, that's right. Yeah.
He graduated, but from Brooklyn Law School, which sounds like a made up thing, like the School of Hard Knocks. Like, I got a degree from the Brooklyn Law School.
Yeah. Meet my professors, Lefty and Right Hook. Yeah,
I'm gonna file some briefs on your face.
The other questions are just all back. Christopher Barnes, the actor who plays Greg in the Brady Bunch movie, looks familiar. Have I seen him on TV? Well, yeah, he's an actor. He's an television actor.
I like that they specify, have I seen him on TV? Like, the question's not just he looks familiar, and the answer would be like, yes, you went to high school with him.
I think... Yeah. I think some of these questions do feel like they're like portions of a cognitive decline test. Like,
yes.
Draw two hands on a clock and also try to place Greg Barnes from, in your memory or whatever. I just very...
Although this one I couldn't do, and they ask about Alison the Placa because there's like a fourth wall breaking joke on the John Larroquette show where she says she was on 5 failed sitcoms. Right. I could have not have named them all. I could have named 4 of them.
That's impressive. I mean, I didn't even know that Tom Arnold had 2 shows. I've heard of the Jackie Thomas show, but I've never heard of Tom, which is a great title. I mean, hard to know why it didn't work.
They workshopped it. Tom was much, much shorter lived than the Jackie Thomas show. The Jackie Thomas show is actually really funny. Mm-hmm. It's really funny. He's basically being Roseanne. So the premise of the show is he's like, a famous sitcom star who's just a fucking crazy asshole. But a lot of it's stuff like that's currently going on with Roseanne, but like it's just really funny. And he just like terrorizes his writers. And I feel like it was, it was not a show that people were like ready for at that time. Like, what's the Gary Shandling show, the talk show? Oh my God. Larry Sanders hadn't really done anything like, so it was like a weird character to have. And it's very funny. They were like, all right, let's maybe do more of a traditional sitcom. But then I knew Duet, which was an early Fox show, which was not great. And I knew Open House, although I have to call bullshit a little bit because if memory serves, Open House and Duet were the same show, and one was a retooled version of the other.
Oh, interesting. So it's kind of a 2.5.
Yeah. Because I believe Open House was about... I think Duet came first, and it was about like yuppies dating or something, but they worked at like a real estate place. So then they realized that like these side characters people liked better and made Open House about it.
Do you think that 30 years is too long to send in a correction?
No, I think it's not. I think it's too short. I have to stop. We have to pause so I can write this letter right now. And it has to be a physical letter.
Yes. Yes, KR from Massachusetts
would like to know.
Yeah, there's no section called like Tell TV Guide though. That would be that's the corrections, right?
Actually, TV Guide. Then there's like an interesting snapshot here of. First of all, there's this '90s column that I always like to point out because it's always completely random and bizarre, and it's the What I Watch, and this is Martin Landau because he's Oscar nominated for Ed Wood, and. Either they fall into 2 categories. It's either I'm completely shocked or it's exactly what I thought they watched. There's no middle ground in these. And this one falls into exactly what I thought he watched. And he's like, I watch American movie classics, PBS and the O.J. Simpson trial.
The OJ trial was huge this year. I mean, we forget, but 95 was like, it was on for most of the year, I think, right?
Yeah. Did they do this in your school? Like when the verdict came out, they like took you out of class?
I don't know. I would have been in elementary school at this point, but I definitely remember it like hearing about it from like a recess aide who's like told all the kids or something. Like the kids are heavily invested in this.
Can you imagine like a court trial? Now that I was in high school, I think I was a freshman, and they literally pulled us out of class and had us all go into the auditorium and like watch the verdict.
Watch it live.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And were there booze or cheers?
I grew up in a very white suburb, so there were booze. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I think the teachers at that point were hoping for the whole courtroom to explode like the Challenger. The last time they pulled everyone out of class to watch something, they were like, oh, couldn't it have happened now?
Oh boy.
Yeah, but that was the only thing. I can't think of like what else would be a story. Like everything's that level stupid story after that. So I'm like, I don't imagine what they'd pull kids out of class now. I mean, 9/11, that's about it.
Yeah. It wasn't quite. No, nobody's like. Were people booing? I guess you would boo, right?
9/11?
Like,
Yeah,
you gotta boo.
I would hope so. Boo!
No, you gotta boo. To be clear, you have to boo on 9/11.
You have no options on that one.
Yeah.
There's not a both sides on that OJ trial. So there's that, and then we got a thing about George Wendt, who was the last Cheers cast member to get his own show post Cheers. So 92 was a weird year in TV where all these 80s big shows went off the air, and like between that and like 94 when like Friends and that stuff started taking off, the networks were like, I don't know, man.
Right.
2 years where they're like, I guess maybe if we get people from Cheers on things, and they all had failed shows, and Wendt was like the last one who had the George Wendt show.
And that was based on the Car Talk guys?
Yes.
Amazing.
Which clearly was two separate shows they owned where they're like, oh my God, well, we got Wendt. Do we have anything else that we've bought the rights to?
It sounds like from these quotes, he's not too confident in the show because everything he's saying is hedging. He says it takes you a while to get into a groove.
Yeah, we're not as zany as they are on the show. You know, it's based on the brothers' relationship.
Boy, what a salesman.
Yeah, they're like, well, it's Boston, and he's a fat guy, so isn't that all we need?
Writes itself. Now, Did you watch that show?
A little bit. It was fine. Anything set in Boston I would watch, because we also had, this is the time when they were like, all right, the key here has to be it's set in Boston.
Right. That was the magic of Cheers.
Yeah, so they did like Boston Common. There was like 5 shows where they were like, this is it. We know this is the gold. And nothing worked. Everybody had a show. Rhea, that was really bad. And then they would do a thing where like the one that was remaining, they'd be like, it's a Cheers reunion on the George Wendt show.
Right.
Yeah, it just wasn't happening. I'd be curious to go back and watch that and see if it's as bad as I remember. Then there's an interesting thing here about Tracy Gold, who has transitioned from Growing Pains into the sort of Lifetime movie realm. Mm-hmm. And she's in some real, no pun intended, gold here. It says, poor Tracy Gold is worried that with 2 TV movies airing almost back to back, Sleep Baby Sleep on March 25th on ABC and The Ladykiller April 5th on CBS, people are going to get sick of me. I'll even get sick of me. I don't even want to be the queen of movies of the week. Sadly, the Growing Pains grad didn't have to do much research for Ladykiller. And what a sentence!
Where's this going?
In which she plays the daughter of a woman played by Judith Light, stalked by an ex-lover played by Jack Wagner. I've had my share of obsessed fans, she says. It's really sad that you can answer fan mail and sign it, Love Tracy. Someone could take that literally.
I mean, so she says you can't answer it. You can't sign it that way.
No.
So she's like getting, is there like a security consultant coach who's like, okay, we know you're getting, Tracy Gold, mountains of fan mail.
Yeah.
For your own protection, sign it cordially.
Yep.
You know,
Your friend.
sincerely, best wishes. You know, even your friend is like, all right,
That was a little weird,
you know, take a chance.
Yeah. Weirdly, on the set of, so I hosted a live partial Growing Pains cast reunion last year.
Sounds right.
So it was Tracy, Jeremy, Julie McCullough, and Tracy Gold did not like me. But the only person who had been stalked on that show where they had to get law enforcement involved was Jeremy Miller.
Really?
He had a stalker who was like, I'm going to fucking kill you. I hate you so like some guy had like attempted to like kill him a bunch because he just didn't like the show. So
sounds like he would have been a better match for Ladykiller.
I would have loved to see him play the lead in Ladykiller as Judith Light's daughter.
This was a great era for TV movies. There was another one that's in this issue that there was an ad for that looked. There were a couple. There was one. Well, we'll get into it. I don't want to jump.
So we get the Oscar thing. Siskel and Ebert preview the Oscars, which is actually a pretty interesting, well-written thing. There's a weird Tylnol ad here where it's just a close-up of this man's six-pack abs, and it says, this stomach can take 100 punches, but only one type of pain reliever. Like, I want to see the Mad Men, like, let's pitch this to Tylnol and see what they think. Like,
who are they trying to sell the Tylnol to here? I mean, think of how dumb drug ads are now, like how emotional and visceral they are. And this one is like, they're getting into like prostaglandins and mucus lining in your stomach. I guess that's what it is. You want presumably somebody who has a six-pack on the outside is also rocking a pretty healthy stomach inside, right?
or just rocking IBS, like you know.
I've been doing sit-ups, but apparently the secret is just spend all your time on the toilet.
Yeah, or like
just clenching.
Clench. Do your Kegels. This ad's also like, are you badass tough guy? Hey, sometimes they even got to take Tylenol. You know, it's fine.
Right,
it's not gay or nothing. Like,
it doesn't make you less of a man.
Yeah, basically,
like aspirin does.
Aspirin's super gay. That's basically this ad is like, aspirin makes you gay. Very odd angle to take on this ad. Then we have an interesting thing that is the TV roots of people who've won Oscars. And obviously we got Tom Hanks in Bosom Buddies. You know, that kind of stuff. You have Travolta in Welcome Back, Kotter, which, my God, is that a terrible show?
You know, I don't know that I mean, maybe I've seen one or two, but then it like went on for like every show seemed to go on forever in the 70s.
It is unwatchable. Like, I can sit through most things, and I'm pretty good at, like, being able to put stuff in context, and, like, Welcome Back, Kotter is unwatchable.
So he's, like, teaching the kids lessons?
Yeah, it's supposed to be Gabe Kaplan's show. So, first of all, you've seen, I don't know if you've ever seen Gabe Kaplan stand-up, but someone saw him do stand-up and is like, yeah, this is the guy. So, like, already,
I'm more familiar with his poker playing.
Yes, he's a funnier poker player than a stand-up, in my opinion. And so they were kind of like, yeah, and he, you know, it's inner city kids, but they're so cartoonish and annoying, and like I cannot believe that these guys came in and read lines this way, and they were like bigger. Like, it's just, it's bad. It's kind of amazing to me that Travolta he's had like 6 different career comebacks.
I mean, it sounds like the Welcome Back, Kotter put him in a pretty deep hole, but not as deep as some of the stuff he would do in the 80s. You know, let's be serious.
Or Battle whatever Earth. Battleship Earth? What was the movie called?
Battlefield Earth.
Battlefield Earth. My God. Have you seen that?
I don't think so.
Oh my God.
Is it time?
There's a scene where he's trying to feed human beings rats because he thinks that's what they eat. And he's got this rat by the tail and he's like, do you want lunch? Do you want lunch? Like, but it's not a comedy.
I love a passion project, you know?
Yeah, it's something. So we got all those there. Then we get to think about the fashions, or just specifically the women's fashions, because who cares about men at the red carpet? an a thing in here about Peter Berg, and it's called Chicago Hunk.
I did, yes. And also the photo of him here, like barefoot.
Yeah. Looking like
scandalous.
Danny Elfman for some reason.
Oh yeah, this does seem a very Danny Elfman would also be barefoot. I think.
Oh yeah,
Very.
I don't ever remember
Very Elfman pose.
Berg having. And then he just like after Chicago Hope, he like basically quit acting and became a director. I believe.
Was it right after that?
I think.
I mean,
so.
Yeah. He's certainly made a bunch of stuff.
The last thing I think I saw him in was Aspen Extreme.
Oh, I don't know that. What's that?
It's bad.
Is
It's
that
like he's like a ski bum and his friend, and they're like trying to be like cool on the slopes, and it's sort of a drama.
Is there a love triangle?
There's a love triangle. There's a big ski event. There's some danger.
Okay.
You could call it a coming of age happens.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I actually think I have seen this movie.
It's
somehow love triangle sort of jogged my memory.
I feel like even if you haven't seen this movie, you've seen this movie.
Yeah.
Then there's an interesting article about the return of the Outer Limits. So Showtime brought back the Outer Limits, and I think it's an underrated revival, and there's some really great episodes, and I never hear anyone talk about it. And they're mostly not remakes of old episodes; they're new episodes. I don't know if you've ever seen them. The opening one was, I think it's George R.R. Martin's story, The Sand Kings, with the Bridges brothers in it, and it's really good.
I remember it being like definitely scarier than like your other horror, and certainly scarier than like Tales from the Crypt or anything like that.
There was no
because Showtime was already like edgier.
Yeah, they were like, we're not doing the fun thing. We're gonna do like some hard sci-fi here.
Yeah.
But there was some great episodes in that. I don't know if it like just never re-airs or like, I mean, people just generally didn't like the Outer Limits as much as they like Twilight Zone anyway.
Right.
Then before we hit the listings, there's Oscar Noshes.
I was all over this.
They have celebrities who are giving you recipes for things you should make while you watch the Oscars. Do you have a favorite here?
So I do like spicy food. So I like the Dee Pfeiffer spicy Caesar salad. Certainly caught my eye.
Her photo is her with a sword through romaine lettuce.
Yeah, I was like, she's really chopping this thing. Yes. If you need a sword, you might need a smaller head of lettuce. Dave Coulier's swordfish with tomato sauce, I thought was
that's an interesting one.
Was good.
And for people who like this sort of thing, in the photo, Dave Coulier is playing the swordfish like a guitar.
Yes. And the accompanying little interview with him is about the time he went to the movies and somebody tried to talk to him. And so he's, I guess, can't go to the movies anymore. He can only sit there playing his swordfish guitar. Eat a swordfish for one, please.
Yep.
Yeah.
Alex Trebek has honey pecan fried chicken, and in the photo, he's giving the least convincing okay sign I've ever seen. Like, this is like a person going, is this how humans do the okay sign?
Yep. Yeah, I'm looking at is that the fried chicken on the pan he's holding? I mean, quite a risk to be cooking in your tuxedo, I have to say.
With hot oil, presumably.
Oh, yeah, sure. I mean, this is, what are we talking about here? A pound of butter in this recipe.
Well, he's Canadian.
Good Lord.
Have you ever seen the Circus of the Stars that he did?
No.
So if you were going to guess what circus act Alex Trebek would do, what's your guess?
Oh my God. I like maybe like a juggling on a unicycle kind of thing?
Yeah, something like that, right? No, he was a human bomb. They put him in a box and blew it up. And he's got like an Evel Knievel suit on. It's nuts. Like,
okay,
you're gonna be the human bomb, Alex Trebek.
Okay. All right. Jesus.
He was a man of many colors. So then we get into the listings here. Oh, Dolores Claiborne. I forgot about that movie. What did you pick for Saturday night?
Let's see. Saturday night. So I think, I mean, and The Simpsons is playing pretty much any time you can find a Simpsons. There's a Simpsons on. I think this is the one with Dustin Hoffman. It's a rerun. It's not one from that season, according to my careful research. So I probably would sample that one, but then I'd flip over to Discovery, where they're showing something called Hitler: The Whole Story.
WHOLE.
Well, that would be on like Cinemax later, I think.
Yes.
but then you know, I'm just interested. Like, well, what has been left out here? Are they going to get to a darker truth about Hitler here?
Right.
You know, who knows? But then you have CNBC, that Dick Cavett talk show that he had in the 90s, that, you know, since lives on YouTube. And then that goes right into later Charles Grodin's show.
Yes.
Do you remember that show?
Yes.
An absolutely insane talk show where there would be, when the musical guest was performing, there would be a camera on Charles Grodin, so you could just see him enjoying like Art Garfunkel.
Yes. It's very weird.
Yeah.
People are like, look, Charles Grodin's enthusiasm is infectious.
Yeah, the people need to see this.
They need to see Grodin. Yeah, that was a weird talk show time, because this is, don't forget, at like the height of everybody also getting a daytime talk show in 95. So we had like Gordon Elliott, Tempest Bledsoe, Susan Powder. There was a new Joan Rivers one, Vicki Lawrence, Ricky. Like there were so many talk shows. So the nighttime was like when they were like, old men can have talk shows at night.
Yes. America wants Charles Grodin in the evenings. Well, he was like, the OJ thing was big for him. I think like that gave him, like made the show pop. He would like have arguments with like Geraldo or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, you mean Geraldo went to law school?
Yeah. So he really didn't have a leg to stand on there. I had, you know, I as part of working on Only Murders and my interest in the movie Clifford, I had I wrote an oral history of Clifford for Vulture, for New York Magazine a few years ago, and I didn't get to talk to Grodin. He was still alive, but I think he died like while I was working on it or something like that.
Unrelated.
But I did. Yeah, there's no link between those things.
He wasn't like, I'm not going to tell you, Turbovsky, and then swallowed a cyanide pill.
I take this under the grave. But I did end up tracking down this guy who was his assistant and who produced the Grodin talk show. And he was like, and I don't think I knew of the show. And he was like, you should check it out. And I did. There are a bunch of clips on YouTube where it just is like such a strange energy, and you know, the hair dye, the whole thing is just really spectacular.
Because it's bizarre that he has a talk, like he wasn't known as like a
he
talk
did
show.
like Beethoven, you know, like, yeah, very strange.
The sequel to A Christmas Story in the Darren McGavin role.
Yes, it runs in the family, I think.
Yes,
right?
yep, I think that's what it was. Yeah, it was very strange. It was like people were like, we like Dick Cavett, but he's kind of too nice. Is there a Dick Cavett that could kind of yell at you, maybe?
Yeah. We want like bland but mean.
Yeah, but somewhat
I mean, Berg was the great. I mean, his Letterman appearances are like unbelievably funny.
Yeah, it's very strange. When you were writing that Clifford piece, does it? I have to say, I read it and I don't recall it now. But
great.
My theory was it stemmed from that SCTV sketch where he was basically Dennis the Menace, but the show never got canceled. So it was Martin Short's character was playing Dennis the Menace essentially, but he's like 45 years old.
Yes. I know the sketch you're talking about. It's not, it didn't come from that. Or he says it didn't. I mean, basically the story, and I'm summing up, 14,000 words of, vulture text, was like he originally, when they wrote it, it was not written for Martin Short. So it was going to be a movie for Charles Grodin and like some other little boy actor.
Gotcha.
Kind of like this version of The Bad Seed, but funny. But at the same time they were doing that, the movie Problem Child, the John Ritter movie, was getting going. So, which was a kind of similar-ish premise. So their movie got shut down, and they're like, okay, how do we distinguish this? And then Steve Campman, one of the writers, says, I guess his wife had the idea, because he knew Marty from Second City in Toronto, what about Martin Short in this role? Now, maybe it did, because of that sketch, kind of stem from that. But I think it was also that they loved the Bad Seed very much,
Yeah. Yeah, because I always was like, this seems like they wrote a movie based on that sketch and then erased the premise of the sketch.
Yeah.
So it's just
that Rusty. That's
that Rusty. That's
Rusty Van Warren.
Yes.
I think.
Yeah. Which is somewhat similar, but that makes sense. I wonder if she had that was like in the back of her mind, and she was like, oh, I can imagine him being a child here.
Yeah.
This actually isn't too much earlier than when Martin Short had the daytime talk show as well.
Is that right?
Yeah, he had a daytime talk show for like a couple years.
Wow. Well, he needed to be, Jiminy Glick is his like ultimate form,
So
I think.
good.
So without Glick, I don't know.
It's so good
as an interviewer.
And this is a theory I have that you are uniquely positioned to opine on.
Mm.
Captain Ron.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The Martin Short role, clearly written for Steve Martin.
Oh, interesting. It is a much straighter part than you think of him as doing,
He's
fine,
I can
see it.
But it's like they were like, we wrote this for Steve Martin. They're like, just do Martin Short, he's around. And he's like, he's funny. And then it's like, but they didn't like tailor the role at all. So it's like, it's a very Steve Martin character.
It'd be worth investigating. All right, I'm going to rewatch through that lens.
Yeah.
See what it yields.
Yeah.
You know what else was on this night that at 10 was a really good HBO Young Comedians year, this 95. Because it's like, it's hosted by, I think there was an ad for it somewhere in there.
There's the Bob Hope's Young Comedians
Well, the Bob
special.
Hope one, but there's the HBO one, which is hosted by Gary Shandling.
Oh, yes. They're on at the same time, which is extra funny.
Really? Those two shows were on at the...
Yes,
Wow.
the Bob Hope Young Comedians Special was on at the same time as the HBO Young Comedians Special.
Yes. Well, the Bob Hope one is like an hour. In the ad somewhere, it says it promises one laugh a minute, which is low for comedy.
There's 6 comics, so
including my friend Karen Kilgariff was on there. I was shocked to see her. But the HBO one was Shandling hosted. It was Dave Attell, Dave Chappelle,
Louis C.K.
Yeah. That's a pretty good year for. I think I'm tuning into that. Not the Bob Hope one.
Yeah,
maybe.
I would too. The Bob Hope one, I forgot about this, and it's so weird. So you have Karen Kilgariff, Sue Kolinsky, Kevin Meaney.
Kevin Meaney, great.
Who's well established by this time. Amazing, but like he'd already done the Uncle Buck TV show. Like Mark Pitta, who I don't know, Wayne Cotter, who was hosting a lot of TV at this time, and Margaret Smith, who's one of those comics who I feel like I always loved seeing on TV, and then she did that 80s show, and then I never saw or heard from her again.
I don't even know. That 80s show is the spin-off or the sequel thing of that 70s
yeah.
show?
And she like owned this record store. Her act, she was very like low key and like kind of monotone and acerbic, but really funny. And she was like everywhere for a bit and then just gone. But I love that Bob Hope was like, I don't trust these young people. We need to have some real comedians in here. Get me Phyllis Diller and Alan Thicke.
I think you're attributing an amount of like sentience to Bob Hope that I don't know he would have possessed in this era necessarily.
You've seen Dana Gould's footage of when Dana was on his Young Comedian Special thing?
I haven't seen you mean his the story he tells? Or is there footage of him?
Oh, there's the footage.
I've never seen the footage. I've heard him. I think he told the story when he was on the Green Room, the Paul Provenza show, or maybe I heard him tell it somewhere. But oh my god, that.
Didn't you used to be my whoa? And they're like, we need to do that again. No. He has the footage. He's posted it online, and Bob Hope goes, well, what was wrong with that one? And they have to go, oh, there was something with the audio, Bob. We got to read it. All right. Amazing. Tim O'Donnell told me an amazing Bob Hope story where Tim was working on a sitcom with Joe Pesci that this actually sounds, I would watch this show now. The premise of the show was that Joe Pesci was like a made mob guy who kind of pissed off one of the mob guys. So they made him go run a comedy club they own.
Fate worse than death.
Yeah, which is hilarious. So they were working on this pilot, and they would go golfing, and they ran into Bob Hope, and Joe Pesci was like, I gotta go say hi to him, whatever. Bob Hope's like 100 and something years old and in a wheelchair. And Joe Pesci's like, hey, Mr. Hope, I'm a big fan, blah, blah, blah. I'm an actor too. And Bob Hope's just like not even acknowledging him. And he goes, yeah, actually, I got nominated for an Oscar. And Bob Hope just goes, which I'm doing for the listener. I'm doing the like whoopee finger circle hand motion. That's all he did, and then just went back to being like catatonic. And then he was
one
like,
of the greats.
Okay, fine. Yeah. So that's an odd. What NBC thinks are young comedians versus what HBO thinks are young comedians head to head.
Yes, certainly.
Very weird. Yeah, that's a good night. Sunday, what do you got?
Sunday, so are movies okay?
Yeah, totally.
There's like a couple of movies.
Absolutely.
I always like when they show movies on commercial TV back then, because like you're seeing such a cleaned up version. There's maybe 40 minutes cut out of it or whatever, but it seems like they're showing Backdraft on NBC. I mean, that's I'm not going to not watch Backdraft, what a treat.
Backdraft has come up on this show a ton recently because I have this weird theory, or not even theory, but like fascination with these movies that were massive cultural phenomena that no one remembers or talks about anymore. So like Backdraft, Dangerous Minds, The Bodyguard, like there's these movies that were just massive. Backdraft was so popular that Entertainment Tonight did a story about the porn parody of Backdraft.
Which was called?
Oh shit, what was it called? It was called like, oh man, like Fire Below or something. Now I have to look this up.
They had, it must have been maybe at Universal Studios. They had a Backdraft, like the ride thing for decades, I think, after the movie.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really a ride. It was like you walk through a room and then like flames, it would just like be on fire and you could feel the heat. Doesn't seem like a thing they would do now.
No, like why are people like, oh, I'd love to feel what fire's like.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
What is it? Oh, I can't find it. Damn it. Yeah, it was called like, I don't know, Fire something, whatever. But it was like the biggest budget like porn parody. So Entertainment Tonight literally was like, we're doing a 15-minute segment on this.
Yeah. Donald Sutherland is in both.
He's in both. Yeah. Yeah. He wrote and directed both things. Yeah. My God.
I'd also probably watch Nick News at this time. I love to be informed. I remember Nick News being an important source of what was going on so it was an adult anchor, right? But the audience is children. It's not the right. But there are no kid reporters, or are there?
There were no kid reporters. It was Linda Ellerby doing. It was geared to kids. So it was a very interesting tone, and she won a bunch of Cable Ace Awards for it. She produced, I believe this particular episode is about the OJ trial. So it's kind of like presenting the OJ trial to kids. But the probably best and most famous Nick News thing she did is the Magic Johnson episode, where in that episode she has a bunch of kids with him and asking him questions, and there is a scene in that I get like teary just thinking about it. There's a little girl who has HIV. She's little. She's like 6 or something, and Magic Johnson's like talking to her, and these other kids are like humanizing her, and it's just like if you can watch that and not just break down crying. It was this huge moment, and it was kind of one of the things that really humanized HIV for people. It was like a massive thing, and Linda Ellerby doesn't kind of get enough credit for it, I don't think.
God, I mean, crazy that I can flip between Backdraft and that.
Yeah,
I mean,
those are your choices.
Jesus.
Speaking of Provenza, when I had Provenza on, we talked about Kids Court quite a bit,
Right.
which was often on in an hour block with Nick News. And I never go back and listen to my old episodes, but occasionally, like, people who do video essays and stuff on YouTube will use like clips for stuff. So someone did an episode about Kids Court, and I watched it, and I forgot that the legal advisor for Kids Court was Alan Dershowitz.
Oh boy.
And so,
no.
so we talked about him for like a really long time, and I'm like, ooh.
Careful. He's very litigious. You know,
He
like,
is. He is. Provenza did say he left his underwear on the whole time.
Oh man.
Yeah. The first Tracy Gold made-for-TV movie is on Sunday night, Sleep Baby Sleep, which is also starring friend of the show, former guest Joanna Cassidy. We didn't discuss this when I had her on, but this looks really, really ridiculous.
Gotta get into these TV movies. It's a lost era.
A young mother is under suspicion by authorities after she reports her baby's abduction, and she must find the real kidnapper to clear her name.
Classic. I mean, that's got stakes, ticking clock.
Yep.
You know, you could teach that in film school.
Yeah, it's like The Fugitive, but about kidnapping. I know my first name is Fugitive. Oh, yeah, perfect. So you're watching that movie all night?
That one.
Yeah.
Well, there's, you got a Taxi rerun, I think.
Yep.
Of course, rerun. Married with Children is on at 9.
This is also kind of the height of MST3K's like mainstream appeal. This is when Comedy Central, it's like their big show for like a year. And so this is when they were doing the MST3K hour, where they would edit episodes into hour-long blocks. And this is a thing I don't remember happening, but I'd be curious to see it now. On Comedy Central, they have the MST3K Oscar preview.
Oh, whoa. I wonder what that even is.
Yeah, it's the MST3K crew predicts winners from among this year's Oscar-nominated films, including Forrest Gump and Pulp Fiction.
So they just do bits? So they just do bits. There's no screening of anything?
Yeah, they're just doing bits, previewing Oscar things. That has to be up on YouTube or something. I'm curious. I have no recollection of that at all.
Yeah, I don't either.
But it looks pretty interesting. Monday, what are you doing?
Monday, well, there's a lot. I mean, before we even get to the Oscars, which are on Monday, but, 6 p.m. on Max, on Cinemax, there's I'll Do Anything, which I've recently taken an interest in, the James L. Brooks.
Oh, a Nick Nolte movie.
Nick Nolte, Albert Brooks, Julie Kavner, and famously, it was he initially shot it as a musical with songs by Prince, among other people, and it's all about like a movie producer and test screenings and this world of Hollywood. And then after some really bad test screenings, or a really bad test screening, he cut out all the music and released a version with no songs, no musical numbers, and it kind of is, okay, a little bit of a mess, obviously. The musical version has never been released. They sort of have talked about it from time to time, but anytime you're dealing with like Prince, you can imagine. I recently found somebody gave me a work print of that version, and it has singing, dancing, like Albert Brooks kind of snapping his fingers, talking about like, why won't you love me, to like an audience at a test screening and stuff. It's a very strange. It was a much stranger. It's not like it was great, that version, but it was just a rough cut. And I think he could have figured it out. But it's such a strange artifact that is just completely forgotten. Yeah, maybe I'd watch that.
They give it 2 stars. I imagine the musical version would probably warrant 3. Does Nolte sing?
He might do a song. I think he probably does. Everybody kind of sings, and they're singing live. So they're not singers necessarily. They're not the most talented. A little pitchy. Pitchy. Let me put it that way.
Bonnie Hunt told me she missed I think it was the Oscars one year, because she was like all dressed up, ready to go in her dress. She goes outside and finds some stray dog on the PCH and brings it inside, and it's Nick Nolte's dog. So she had to go bring his dog back and didn't go to the award show. Yeah,
it's really a small town when you think about it. But that's all, that all is getting me ready really for the Oscars, which I can't believe it seems like it started at 9 on the East Coast, which I think is much later.
Yeah, that does seem later.
Yeah,
coverage on E starts at 7. Yeah, so that's even late for that.
I mean, I also at the time, I'm not going to sit through like every category in the Oscars, so I might flip around to either Lawnmower Man on NBC or Jagged Edge on Encore. But mainly the Oscars.
I love seeing what other networks counter program with, because
that's genius. Those are genius moves.
They're like, I would love to hear those meetings where they're like, okay, who isn't going to be watching the Oscars? And they're like, people that like the Lawnmower Man. The famously snubbed Lawnmower Man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that movie's bad. The only movie Stephen King ever sued to have his name taken off.
Yeah, because it was like, he had nothing really to do with it. Like, it was like nothing. And they're like based on a short story or whatever. Yeah.
They took the name of his short story to a completely unrelated script called Cyber God and threw his name on it and called it Stephen King's Lawnmower Man. It's like, no.
I get his outrage, but is it worse than Maximum Overdrive?
At least he directed that.
That's true. That does have that AC/DC soundtrack.
Who made who? And you see Marla Maples killed in the opening credits.
That's right. She's in the van.
And classic line, this machine just called me an asshole. So
pretty good.
Worth it for that.
Yeah.
Lawnmower Man. Man, there's how many times can they use the plot of Flowers for Algernon?
Yeah, but for evil though,
right? Right.
That's novel, I think.
I feel like there's a lot of things where they're like, look, if we make people who are developmentally disabled smart, they get super horny and evil. That's the lesson here. It's
basically the same argument they use for like cutting Medicaid, or whatever. They're like, look, you keep supporting them, they're going to turn on you.
Yeah. Like, you don't want to give them the tools to destroy you. Oh, man. Virtual reality yet to destroy us, even though 1995 really thought it would. There was like 6 different movies that were like,
yes,
you had Brain Scan, Johnny Mnemonic.
Johnny Mnemonic, of course.
Oof. Arcade. Yeah, there were some real ones out there. So then you're doing the Oscars?
Yeah, I mean, I rewatched a little bit of some of the bits, but I had these Oscars somehow on tape, like growing up, I don't know. I mean, I guess I know I loved Letterman, but I wouldn't have been staying up late enough to watch a show, so I must have just been taping the Oscars out of 9-year-old award enthusiasm.
Yes.
And this was the only one I had on tape. So I like watched it a few times over the years. And I remember his bit where he's, Cabin Boy had come out like the year before or something, which was obviously, a kind of huge flop. And he was talking about his like one line in the movie, would you like to buy a monkey?
One of those fancy lines.
And he like shows a reel of like all the other actors who auditioned for it, doing that line reading, and there's some like clunkers in there, but then there's like Albert Brooks is in it and is very funny, and like Barry White does it. I think Madonna. It's like I was like, oh, this is like a basically pretty good bit,
Here's a weird real life addendum to that bit. So I've become friendly with Adam Resnick, who's awesome dude. That movie like ruined him for years.
Right.
But I converted a bunch of his VHS tapes digitally for him. One of them is literally auditions for Cabin Boy.
Okay.
So there's a bunch of famous actors who auditioned for parts in that movie who didn't get them. And so I've seen all their auditions, and some of it was on the Blu-ray later, but not all of it. So it's pretty interesting. I'm no Barry White, and no one's reading the Letterman lines. But it's odd that that's a bit, and I've also kind of seen the real world version of it in a weird way. Very strange.
Man.
Yeah.
That's a treasure you have there.
It is. There's some movies I do not remember at all.
From the Oscars,
Blue Sky, Jessica Lange was nominated.
And she won.
I don't remember that movie at all.
I don't remember that one. There's a Tom and Viv.
Yes,
I don't know that
Miranda
movie.
Richardson. I love the best songs that are performed that night. So you have "Make Up Your Mind" by Randy Newman from the movie The Paper.
Oh, that one should look. I don't know that song, but you can't not give it a. Even though they didn't, right. Randy Newman is the greatest,
right?
The greatest.
And then you got "Can You Feel the Love Tonight" from The Lion King. Then this is the one that threw me off. Patti Smythe of I Am the Warrior does the song "Look What Love Has Done" from the movie Junior. Which, Rob, if you want to tell the people what the plot of Junior is.
I mean, who can forget? Now, there's a movie that stood up, but it's a twins reunion of sorts because it's DeVito and Schwarzenegger, and Schwarzenegger becomes pregnant because he's a pregnant man.
Yep, and that movie had a song nominated for an Oscar.
I don't remember the song. How does he give birth in that? Is it a C-section?
I think so. I don't think it's super graphic. Unless they've deleted scenes from that. Can you get that word print, Rob? You know anyone who can get us that one?
Well, there's our first version. Before Ivan Reitman came in, it was a Cronenberg movie.
I mean, Reitman and Cronenberg knew each other.
Both Canadian. Yeah, sure.
He came in, he's like, we had David shoot this scene, and it made sense.
Yeah. No one can see this.
I can guarantee you, in whatever happens in the birth scene, Schwarzenegger is making the noise that he perfected in Total Recall.
Oh boy!
So where are we? Tuesday, what are you doing?
Tuesday, 8 p.m. on Fox, world broadcast premiere of one of my favorite movies, Brian De Palma's Raising Cain.
Yes.
I mean, imagine seeing that with commercials. Just an absolutely crazy movie.
John Lithgow,
it's
Lolita Davidovich.
John Lithgow in like 3 or 4 different parts.
Yeah.
Lithgow.
Yep.
There's also this different version of Raising Cain. Like the script that De Palma wrote was kind of a different movie. That was a much slower burn where you're spending all this time, I think, with the Lolita Davidovich character for a while. And John Lithgow exists in it as her husband. And then there's like this crazy turn of, he's this psycho killer. And apparently in the edit, De Palma kind of got nervous that it wasn't grabby enough up front. And so he kind of re-edited it to be the version that presumably was shown on Fox. But somebody found his script and cut together that version, put it online. De Palma somehow saw it and was like, this is what I wish it had been. And you can get that version on the Shout Factory DVD, I think. They're both on there. But it is just a nuts... Lithgow is like the best De Palma villain. You know, he plays a villain in Obsession, Blowout, and Raising Cain. And he's just so good. But Raising Cain is like, he's so huge. It's just, he plays like the guy, the dad, the sister. Like it's and it's just like De Palma riffing on De Palma. I can't say enough about Raising Cain.
It's like John Lithgow's The Flumps.
It's an amazing. He's prefiguring Eddie Murphy's work for sure. It's just such a treat.
This was
a wild, weird movie.
It was sort of a return to form for De Palma because he had done The Untouchables and I think something else that was not like his sort of Hitchcock.
I think this was right. I think it was the movie he made. I could be wrong, but I think it was right after Bonfire of the Vanities, which really did not work out for him and was really not what a De Palma movie is, you know. So he really kind of like went back to, I think, like his sweet spot with this. I don't know if it's like how De Palma fans where Raising Cain ranks with them. You know, people tend to like Dress to Kill and Blowout, usually Scarface.
Body Double's been finding an audience after being just derided for years, and I always loved that movie.
Yes. Yes, Body Double felt like it was having a moment. I think it was like 40 years recently or something like that. Yeah, that's a fun one for sure.
I mean, Phantom of the Paradise is still my favorite De Palma movie.
Oh, incredible. You never hear him like talk about that. I don't know. I wonder if he has like complicated.
He doesn't talk about his early
that.
stuff that much. I had Gil Adler on, who produced Sisters and Hi Mom and the first three like De Palma movies.
The comedies.
Yeah.
Those like Hi Mom and Greetings.
Yes,
yeah,
Greetings.
sure.
That's the other one I was trying to think of. And that was really interesting because, I did get the impression that De Palma was kind of like, for whatever reason about those movies.
Yeah.
Raising Cane, famously, the film is what the chain of chicken restaurants is named after.
There's one up the street.
Yeah, they have that Lithgow sauce.
Tasty.
Anything else you're doing Tuesday, or are you just doing that movie?
Well, there was a show that I had never heard of. There's an SNL rerun. I mean, that's how I saw most of my SNL. I'm sure it was through the hour edit reruns. But there's a show because it goes in the after Kids in the Hall. There's something called Exit 57.
Mm-hmm.
What is that?
So Exit 57 was a sketch show from the early 90s Second City cast. So this was the first thing that Stephen Colbert, Amy Sedaris, a couple other people who were from that cast of Second City, the ones who didn't go to SNL, did Exit 57. Paul Dinello.
Okay.
It's all the people who did Strangers with Candy. So this was their first thing. Very weird sketch show. People did not enjoy it. They were full on doing what they do. Paul Dinello did a show called a song parody that got probably the most high profile because Comedy Central would air just that parody later. And it was like a breakup song for a girl who'd left him to join a Jesus cult. And it was called like, I'm as good as Jesus. And it had a chorus that was like, I can cure a cripple with a prosthesis and I can walk on water when it freezes. And it was like a very, but I remember Amy Sedaris did a character that was like a superintendent at a building, but she was paralyzed from the waist down and didn't have a wheelchair. So people would have like, I need you to come in and fix my sink. And she'd be like dragging herself across the floor with a toolbox.
Does this exist online or anything?
Some of it's online, yeah. So it was a very weird show. It was named after the exit to New York City from Connecticut on I-87 South.
Okay.
But there's some really funny stuff there. And Colbert got the Dana Carvey show right after it and then went to The Daily Show. And Amy Sedaris, and then they kind of all reunited for Strangers with Candy.
Right.
But there's some proto Strangers with Candy stuff in there. There's some funny stuff. This is when Comedy Central was like, hey, Kids in the Hall is a big hit for us. Can we make our own? And so they had this and then a show called The Vacant Lot.
Okay.
And The Vacant Lot had Mark McKinney's brother.
Okay.
And a few other people that it didn't hit for whatever reason. It was like, fine. But Exit 57 is very strange.
We had there's this podcast, and they do live shows out here called Dead Pilots Society.
Oh yeah, with Ben Blacker and
yes, yeah, where they read pilots that were either were never made. I think it's pilots that were sold but never made. And we had written one years ago called The Trial. I think we were calling like Celebrity Murder Trial or something. And our initial idea was like it was about like a stand-up comedian on trial for murder, and we would get someone to play themselves. And our dream was like, what if we get Gary Shandling, to like play himself, or Albert Brooks or something like that. People who are way too old for Comedy Central, which is who bought it. So they of course didn't make it. But like last year, this podcast like put on a reading of it, and we just made the comedian a fictional comedian, and Mark McKinney played him.
Oh, nice.
At the read, and was so funny.
He's so good.
Just like crushed it, like worked so hard on this thing that's like, who's, unclear whoever is going to hear this, but it was like such a cool experience, and he was just like perfect for it. Wish we had thought of him or his brother.
I wrote a pilot this was pre-Barry, and my idea was that you know those like road comics who you don't understand how they get gigs and they're like weirdos and don't really talk to anyone? It was a road comic who that was a cover for him to be a hitman. So he would do like shitty, like, you know, mall comedy club in some town. And he was just, that was like his cover story to like murder someone there. But was still doing this like really stupid act from the 80s.
That is a good idea.
Yeah, but they weren't into it. But Amy, when I had Amy on the show, she told me she wrote a pilot, a detective show pilot. So like kind of like a Columbo type show, but she was fascinated with that sort of defective detective genre of the 70s, you know, the Kojak, whatever.
Sure.
So her detective was paralyzed from the neck down.
Okay.
So
Okay.
She was like, oh, it was just ridiculous.
Yeah. I like it.
Yeah.
Like it.
And then she also told me when they first got Strange World Candy with Comedy Central was like, okay, you need a showrunner though. Like none of you have run a show. We need someone who's done this before. Are there any shows you like? And we'll reach out to that person. And Amy was like, I love My So-Called Life. And I think Winnie Holzman.
Okay, perfect match.
So they send Winnie Holzman this script and she calls them and she's like, never talk to me again. I don't know what's wrong with you people. She was like so offended. Oh, yeah.
She's nominated for an Oscar this year.
Yes, for Wicked, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
My God. Yeah, so Exit 57 would recommend. Wednesday, What are you doing?
Well, Wednesday, I could jump into like half of the Twilight Zone movie.
Yep.
I think started at 7:15. So at 8, I still probably have, 45 minutes left, probably including the John Lithgow bit on the plane, right? But you missed the Aykroyd thing at the beginning, of course.
Right, and Albert Brooks.
And Albert Brooks, that's right.
Look at that old man. He looks like an old man.
Like an amusing bit. And then, who else? It's George Miller did the Lithgow one, right? And it's Joe Dante.
Joe Dante did It's a Good Life. Spielberg did Kick the Can, and John Landis.
And then there's a fourth one, I think. There's some fourth director did something happen.
The George Miller segment led to the best joke they ever did on Third Rock from the Sun.
Okay.
And on Third Rock from the Sun, William Shatner played like their boss from whatever planet. And there's a scene where they're supposed to talk to him on like the screen, and he goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm late. There was a problem with my plane." And Lithgow goes, "That happened to me once." And that's it. That's the whole reference. And it's perfect.
And how does it play with the studio audience?
Nothing.
So, like, gas.
Not a thing.
That's for the Ken Reeds watching at home.
Yeah, it's true. You're going Lithgow crazy this week.
I didn't plan this, but you could never plan to go Lithgow crazy. But sure. I mean, there's other good stuff. Well, 9 p.m. there's a CBS movie, Stranger in Town. Gregory Hines and Gene Smart. Now, that's an interesting cast, and I like the kind of an intruder with a hidden agenda, a mother with a desperate secret. When all is revealed, nobody will be the same.
How many movies could you put that on the poster of and not have it be wrong?
That's true.
Gregory Hines, this had to be one of the last sort of dramatic things he did before he had that last show, the Gregory Hines Show. And this, once again, proving Gene Smart can do nothing wrong. Like, she does everything good.
Yes. Something else in this section, it's just an ad that I'm making sure you see. It's for American Inventors Corp.
Yes.
It's an ad. It has a photo of like a light bulb, and it says, "The light bulb was invented in 1883. Your idea might be just as big."
Yep.
So it's like they do what, like they help you like trademark or patent things or something like that.
It's a scam thing. It's basically like those.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah. So it's like those things where it's like write a poetry contest, or like
right.
or write a song or whatever. Yeah, this was a big scam, but a lot because everyone had like an uncle or their dad who was like,
it's like, I got an idea. I'm not so impressed with that Thomas Edison. Yeah. I could.
The only person I know with a U.S. patent is Melanie Chardoff. She invented a gray water recycling system.
Okay, that actually is pretty useful.
Yeah, it reuses your like shower water to flush your toilet, basically. And she invented this and has a U.S. patent on it.
I don't know if this is just because I'm, a little spoiled here in Los Angeles, but I like to flush with like a fresh, clean tank.
Of course.
Like I like to know that that's unused.
Yeah.
It just feels good, know. I mean,
preferably spring water.
I don't know.
And none of that Adirondack shit.
I don't mind if it's like LaCroix, that's okay with me.
Man, man.
And then there's, is it this night? I think it's a 10 on this night, but there's the comedy salute to Andy Kaufman, which was one of those Andy Kaufman things that was on all the time. He had to have like more tribute shows per comedian than anybody else. But this one, I think I remember being like a good one because like shot on film, and it's Rodney Dangerfield is interviewed and Shandling.
Yep.
I remember this one being really cool.
This was the premiere. So this was on NBC, and Comedy Central later got a hold of it, and they just ran it nonstop. But this only got made. This is according to Saget, he told me he's the reason it got made, which I believe, because Saget, if you think of 95 in this lineup, is by far the biggest star on that thing. Because he had America's Funniest Home Videos and Full House. So he basically went and said, I will host this thing for free if you do it.
Wow. So this was like amazing. So this was just, and he just wanted to do it just to like keep the Andy, because Andy had probably been dead he died when in
11 years? Maybe it's the 10th anniversary of him being dead. Yeah, and this was way before, the Man in the Moon movie or anything like that. Yeah. Michael Richards was on Seinfeld, but not like massive star at this point. And Saget just remembered Kaufman from performing stand-up with him. Like, he loved it.
I mean, it's amazing I had rewatched not that long ago the other thing that Comedy Central would run, which was that I'm from Hollywood, about the wrestling of women. Which when I was a kid, I like watched it totally sincerely, like I was like, oh, this is real. But now it is the funniest shit, And I think there's 2 Andy Kaufman documentaries coming out next year.
Oh, interesting.
I know the guy who made one of them. That he let me see, called Thank You Very Much. His name's Alex Braverman, to give him a plug he doesn't need. And I think the Safdies produced it, and it's really great. It has a ton of Kaufman stuff you haven't seen, like performance footage and Tony Clifton stuff. And it's like very cinematic. It's not talking heads, although it has some great interviews and stuff. But, I definitely would have watched this because, like, it's like a 9-year-old. I was like, very into Andy Kaufman.
I remember around the time Man in the Moon came out, Johnny Legend showed my breakfast with Blassie at the Coolidge Corner and did a Q&A and all that stuff. And his sister is Lynn, whatever that dated Andy at the end of his life. The one
Lynn Margulies.
That Courtney Love plays in the movie, and she was there, which was kind of interesting to talk to her about that. And actually, Tom Arnold told me a story, and I've never heard him tell this anywhere else, but when I had him on, he was working in a slaughterhouse in Tacoma, Washington, and he was like outside, and he ran into Andy Kaufman, who was doing a show, and like talked to him briefly, like in this alley, and he says that's what made him do stand-up.
Wow. And that was a real thing and not a hallucination?
Who could know for sure, but that's the story. And have you ever seen the Tony Clifton pilot?
A pilot?
Bob Zamuda did a pilot in the 90s for
just in time
a Judge Judy type show called Stormy Justice with Tony Clifton as the judge. That
sounds familiar.
It's so funny. It's so because the people are like, they're not actors. They're people who would go on one of those shows. And he is nuts because he keeps changing. Like, he'll start talking about, like, you'll think one guy's winning, and then he'll totally say the opposite thing, and everyone's confused. It's so funny.
I had the weirdest thing. When I was writing I wrote for the Boston Phoenix, RIP, for a while, and Tony Clifton was doing a tour. It was, like, for Comic Relief or something. He would do the weirdest shows. I mean, he would do, like, a 4 or 5 hour show. Just till the whole audience walked out, where he would just do Rhinestone Cowboy for 25 minutes. But so I was supposed to interview Bob Zamuda, and it was like a phone interview, and they're like, Zamuda will call you at 1:00 or whatever. 1:00 comes and goes, no phone call. Hours later, I get a call from Tony Clifton. It's like, I don't want this, man.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, oh, neat, but also like, I just want to type this up.
I'm trying to do a job here, man.
He was Tony. And then I had this weird thing where I would see him in LA and he pretended to know me or seemed to know me, as Tony Clifton. He did like this long stand at the Comedy Store where he gave out what he said was LSD to the audience and shaved a woman's vagina on stage. And
that classic bit.
Just exactly what Andy Kaufman would be doing if he were alive.
Totally. That's what he had in his notebooks for his plans for the future. Stormy Justice.
Anyway.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a fantastic special. And I watched it on this night when it first aired. And I would have watched it anytime it was on. Loved it. Anything else on, what are we on, Thursday?
Remarkably on Wednesday still.
Oh, nice.
No. Thursday, there's a lot on cable. I mean, Unsolved Mysteries, for sure, favorite.
Yeah.
Do
you have a favorite segment?
On Unsolved Mysteries?
Yeah. The one that sticks out as like a quintessential.
I always was like the ones where people would disappear without a trace.
Yes.
Like we're just like somebody is gone and there's no finding them. And it's like, even though the answer is always like spouse, like they're always like, it's always like Robert Stack in a trench coat speculating about aliens or or other dimensions or something like that.
I brought it up on the show many times. My favorite segment, Haunted Bunk Bed. It's real good.
Pretty good. It's still going on something.
Yeah.
They brought it back or something.
Yeah, but it's more like because 90% of the Unsolved Mysteries segments would be solved with a cell phone. So the new one is like one thing they do for a full hour. So it's more like a true crime show. And I stopped watching when I love Dennis Farina, but when he took over as host, I completely took me out of it because every single Unsolved Mystery, in my heart of hearts, I was like, come on, Farina can do this. Like it seemed like he would be like, I got it. All right. This guy disappears when we killed him. Next.
What? That's an incredible Dennis Farina. Wasn't he an ex-cop?
He was. Yeah, he was a cop. He started acting because Michael Mann had him be a technical advisor on Thief. And he had him do a small part and then started acting, which is like what a gift to the world.
That's the way people should get into it.
Did you ever watch Crime Story?
No, I don't know Crime Story.
Crime Story is Michael Mann post Miami Vice, and it's essentially Mad Men Miami Vice. It stars Dennis Farina in the 60s in Chicago as the head of this like special crimes unit. And then the second season goes to Las Vegas, and it's so good.
Is this for network?
Yeah, it was on ABC, I believe.
God.
It's real good.
Different time.
Yeah.
But I'm probably watching that. I mean, there's that like classic Nick at Night like sitcom block, I mean, it's Taxi and a Bob Newhart. You're going to have a better time than that. But also, there's you got Manhattan Murder Mystery. That's passable weight Woody Allen,
period.
I think.
Yeah. It's better than Curse of the Jade Scorpion.
Oh yeah, that one's a tough one. It's better. It's certainly better than, what's the one where he goes blind?
Oh,
Hollywood Ending.
Yes, that's bad.
He's like a director who goes blind, like psychosomatically. Yeah. But the way Woody Allen plays blind is he's actually also playing deaf.
Yes.
Like someone is talking and he's just like looking in the other direction.
He's like,
he also can't tell where sound is coming from.
So blind. That's Mr. Magoo? And they're like, no, not really, Woody. It's
he's like, shoot it.
Mr. Magoo.
He's like, I want to be done by 6. So let's kind of get this going.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Not one of his best. Have you ever heard that story? Robert Mitchum's like my favorite actor of all time. And there's an amazing episode of Dick Cavett, a 2-parter that he does that's on YouTube. He was working at Lockheed Martin and he went hysterically, psychosomatically blind one day at work.
So that actually is a thing that happens?
That is a thing. And he's telling this story about how he just couldn't see for a couple of days and he was like, I need to quit this job. And he quit that job and started acting. Like, that's the story.
God. Like, right. Imagine having a job that's so bad and makes you so depressed that the job you go to is acting.
Yeah.
That's got to be a really bad job.
Yeah. I've discovered,
Boy.
especially in the 90s, that the track of people, because infamous people, like, you know, they're trying to keep their fame going, so they're like porn, right? And then what's the thing lower than porn? Stand up. Every time. John Wayne Bobbitt, Stormy Daniels, every single person. Because like the classic Hollywood is like, you better be careful because you'll go out there and it'll go wrong and you'll end up in, you know, some skin flicks. And then it's like, or even worse. Turn to stand up.
You're gonna end up in front of people, 2 drink minimum, trying to figure out something new to say about planes. I mean, that is a cautionary tale.
Nobody wants that. That's the lowest of the low. You don't want to end up like Ron Jeremy. Friday night, what are you doing?
Well, Friday, now I saw there's an 8 p.m. on Fox, like WWF thing.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely was huge into the WWF, but I don't ever remember it. It would air at like prime time on Fox.
I don't ever remember it airing on prime time on Fox regularly. So I presume this is some kind of special of some sort, like a one-time thing, because then Fox is airing, speaking of the Lawnmower Man, right after it, VR5. So maybe
there's some discussion of that elsewhere in the. They're not fans of VR5.
Pretty bad. So they were like, "What will kids like? WWF wrestling and then VR5."
The kids are huge in it. Who's in that? Somebody from Melrose Place? Or something?
It was Anthony Head is actually in it pre-Buffy. Louise Fletcher, and then the lead was, oh my God, what's her name? She's in The Man with One Red Shoe, and she's in Warlock. Lori. Oh, what is her name? She was the.
You're gonna get there. This has got to be so good for you, like cognitively forcing yourself to
That's
recall
my hope.
these things.
I used to be better at it.
Yeah.
Lori Singer. So Lori Singer was the lead in it. And she's great. She always kind of got written off as like the store brand Daryl Hannah kind of thing. But she has like a cool, weird energy, and she's great in The Man with One Red Shoe, and the first Warlock movie is fantastic, and she's really good in it.
She's in a really weird Alan Rudolph movie called Trouble in Mind.
Oh yes,
you know that movie
with Divine as a man.
Divine, as a man, as like a gangster. Really strange movie. They had like an Alan Rudolph retrospective out here, and he was there and showed this, and I mean, it was just like a real baffler. But that guy made like 50 movies that you haven't seen.
Yeah.
Like I feel like, you know, a couple of them kind of like Remember My Name and Choose Me, I think like some people know, but there are like a lot of others that are so strange.
Yeah, Trouble in Mind, I remember first seeing Night Flight aired it on USA Network in like the mid 80s. And I was a kid, but I knew Divine well. I loved Divine, and I was like, I don't know what this is. Like, it blew my mind.
Yeah, that had to be the weirdest thing you could possibly see on time. It's like this weird future that he's...
It's a neo-noir kind of...
Yeah, very strange.
Yeah.
And like a weird jazz, like synth soundtrack.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, that has its moments.
It's sort of got Blade Runner vibes, but
yeah, it's one of those movies I would take my wife to from time to time, where she's like, did we have to do that?
You know, you're lucky to have me. You know that, right?
Very fair. Yeah. Yes, and I am. And oh, how she suffered. Don't I know it?
Doesn't mine feel the same way? I'm right there with you.
Yeah. But then at 9, I think, you know, a movie for everybody, Major League, is on USA, as it was, I believe, every night at 9 for about 10 or 15 years.
Yep, pretty much. Occasionally you'd get Major League too, but yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, you got a great Randy Newman song right off the top on that one. And I mean, just a delightful, you know, we're always talking about, my writing partner, like, you know, people claim that they want grounded character comedy, like Major League and Midnight Run, I think, are the kind of foremost examples of, no one's like telling jokes or like really quippy exactly. It's just like really great, funny characters that feel lived in and are hilarious together. But Man, Major League is so good.
Yeah,
I mean,
it manages to do that Cheers thing where none of the jokes would work if any of the other characters said them, which
yes.
is like the ultimate test to me, because so many comedies, it's like everyone has the same voice in this. It's like about, you know,
Yes.
it's kind of 90s sitcom vibe. And that movie, like I remember my dad thought the voodoo priest guy was the funniest thing ever. When he's like, that's what is it, like rum from Matumbo or something like that. It's like, thought that was the funniest thing, but it's one of the better sports movies, and a fine Charlie Sheen role.
I know, you know, he could act. He could act, you know.
I miss the comedies that could also serve as thrillers with stakes. So like Real Genius is a good example to me, or like, you know, the first Lethal Weapon, or, you know, or the first two Beverly Hills Cop movies. Like whenever we have a action comedy now, it's way more into like the Fall Guy, or like stuff where you're like, there's no stakes with this. Like it's just silly. Like
it's because there's, I think, this pressure to get enormous with these movies, because you have to it's almost like it's easier to make a movie that costs $200 million, like The Fall Guy, or, you know, I don't know how much that costs exactly, but I imagine it was a lot. So because it has to be so epic that people are actually going to go to the movies to see it.
They have to see it in the theater.
You know, yeah, you compare that to like a Lethal Weapon or Beverly Hills Cop, which keep it like real, and, you know, it's about these characters and the situation and stuff. So it is just a different thing. But yeah, those movies are really, really great.
I have to say too, last year I rewatched as many movies from 1984 as I could, and I'm doing this year from 85. And so I watched Beverly Hills Cop, speaking of Twilight Zone movie, and then I watched Part 2. And Part 2 is so much a better movie because that Tony Scott direction that makes that so cinematic and stylish, like that's what I want in a comedy. Like shooting it like a film instead of that sort of flat, like Landis is a flat director. Like he just is. Like,
yeah. He's not an action guy for sure. You know?
And so like it's an interesting, it's the only example I can think of where you have essentially the same story, same elements, but to see the way Landis handles it versus the way Tony Scott handles it, it's really, the contrast is shocking in a good way, and like a nerdy kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see more like comedy shot like a Tony Scott movie.
Oh, that'd be 10,000 cuts.
Yeah,
That would be
a lot
incredible.
of ceiling fans and noir shading. Anything else on Friday, or is it the whole night?
I think that takes that. I think that would be my night probably. Oh, you know, Serial Mom is on Cinemax.
I love that movie.
At 8. You know, it's up on Criterion now. It just is like an unbelievable Kathleen Turner performance.
Oh, Pussy Willows.
I mean, one of the great comedy performances ever. Really,
Fashion has changed.
just so they're all so good. I think it's like John Waters firing on all cylinders.
Yeah.
Everyone knows the movie they're in, which is really hard when you're in a kind of heightened reality.
It's great and perfect for this O.J. Simpson. Like it was maybe the most well-timed movie he did as far as like capturing what was in the zeitgeist of like, you know, that time.
Yeah. I mean, he was definitely ahead of his time on people eating dog shit.
Well, yeah.
That's now happening now on a national scale.
I mean, there's teams in high schools that do that just competitively.
That's just how you get into a fraternity.
Yeah, it's true. That's how you get movies made now.
That's right.
Yeah, I love John Waters so much. Like he's just the best. And one of the greatest things about growing up in Boston was he would do, it felt like once a month, because he was in P-Town so much, he would basically do a screening or something in a Q&A when I was growing up. So I've seen him. He's, I joke and I say it, but I mean it. Like he's the first stand-up I really ever saw regularly. Because it's basically what he's doing. His Q&As were just sort of stand-up and just the best. Like amazing.
I interviewed him for the Phoenix. We were doing like a Christmas gift guide, and somehow I got to talk to John Waters about like Christmas gift giving, and also his like favorite Christmas movie, which I think you would probably, is it Christmas Evil?
Yes,
I think
Christmas
is his favorite
Evil.
Christmas
He does a
movie.
commentary on the DVD.
Yeah, so that was a real thrill to get to get to talk to him about like his, he sends out like a Christmas
Yep.
card every year and all this stuff. Yeah.
His most famous
He's
one
a
is
delight.
Steve Buscemi dressed as him. Yeah.
That's very
He does a
funny.
commentary on Mommy Dearest as well on the DVD, which is really interesting because he's such a film scholar. Like, have you seen the David Lynch in Oz documentary?
No.
So it's really good. It's essentially like 4 video essays by different critics about David Lynch and his connection to Wizard of Oz. And they're
Right.
good, but Waters has one, and it's 45 minutes of him doing like scholarly film analysis that's also really funny and insightful, and it's like just the best. It's the best.
I will.
Watch it whenever.
Add it to my Criterion queue.
Yes. All right. Well, this has been so fun. Thank you for doing this. Miss chatting with you. We need to go get Thai food at some point.
Come out here. The fires are out, and the next fires are probably a few months away.
Nice. I'll try to time the
maybe it's a good
fires
time.
in between the fires.
Yeah.
So we go there.
Well, I hope some of this is usable.
I think at least 10 minutes. We could,
That's a good ratio. It's not bad.
it's like a shooting match. That's real. Best dude. You've definitely seen things he's written and enjoyed them. I guarantee you. Love talking to him so much. Hopefully I will be out in LA sooner rather than later, and he and I will consume very hot larb together. That is a Thai dish for those of you who are plebs and don't know that kind of thing. Get out of your bubble, man. I say this and I don't leave my house. Anyway, I hope you had fun, and we'll have fun again next week because I'll have a brand new edition of TV Guidance Counselor.
Some of these questions do feel like portions of a cognitive decline test.